Well, we're joined now by trans advocate Shivani Dave. Shivani, great to have you on the programme. I mean, look, the argument would be that the entire law can't change for the sake of, or the entire proposal, policy can't change for the sake of one person's hurt feelings. But you could also argue that Sunak didn't really time his attack on Starmer particularly well.
True. I mean, when you say the law or the policy can't change because of one person, I'm not sure which law or which policy you're referring to. But yeah, the joke, the jibe, whatever people want to call it, people online have been calling it transphobic, whatever people want to call it, bad timing. And I would say not a good joke if it was supposed to be funny.
I don't think it was supposed to be funny, but I'll tell you what I'm convinced of. Maybe you can tell us what you think, Alicia. At that moment, in the heat of the debate, Rishi Sunak forgot that Esther Ghey was in the House of Commons. That's why he said that. Would you agree with that?
Maybe, but that's not really what people are annoyed about here. I think the thing that people are annoyed about is less about the kind of details of what Rishi Sunak said and more about whether he's being a bit tone deaf as a Prime Minister and his lack of judgment. I mean, that's the thing, it's the timing about this. Lots of people think it was perfectly fair for him to ask Keir Starmer this question. It's not a new question. Keir Starmer gets asked this all the time, but it was just the timing of that. So him forgetting probably isn't going to be the strongest defence in the future if that's what
So, Shivani, did you think that the Prime Minister was transphobic in that moment?
I think the Prime Minister is transphobic, not just in that moment, yes.
OK. Explain.
I think the Prime Minister has a long track record of making comments about trans people that are unfounded and, frankly, unserious. And I think he's doing it to stoke a culture war, to distract from the fact that his policies are failing and his party that's been in government for over 10 years has been running this country into the ground.
Well, but I think he's a sort of a born-again woman definer. We played footage of him about 2-3 years ago, being interviewed by Julia Hartley-Brewer on Talk Radio, as it was then, and she asked him. I mean, I think we've got it here. Maybe you can we play that for Shivani? Have a look at this.
Rishi Sunak, what is a woman?
Well, I thought the Prime Minister answered this brilliantly in Prime Minister's Question Times, in Prime Minister's Questions this week, and I fully agree with him.
And so what is your definition of a woman?
As I said, I would exactly agree with what the Prime Minister said at Prime Minister's Question Time. I thought he answered the question very well.
An adult human female?
Sorry, Julia, as I said, I thought the Prime Minister answered the question brilliantly. And
he thought he answered it brilliantly. So what were the words that he said that you agree with, Chancellor?
I think if you look at the full thing that he said on Wednesday, he answered the question brilliantly, and I would agree with every word that he said.
So you see what I mean? He's not so sure himself, is he? That was when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, of course. What do you think of that?
Well, I think this idea of defining what a woman is or isn't is something that has just snowballed consistently over the last few years. Everyone wants to ask this question to people within politics. And within politics, I mean, hopefully they're focusing on keeping this country running. And actually, what we're seeing online and in the media is the fact that they're just talking about this theory of what a woman
football,
is.
Isn't
Yeah,
it? It's become
and
a
it is part of this culture war. And I mean, we got statistics from the Home Office late last year that showed that from 2022 to 2023, hate crime against trans people rose by 11%. And the Home Office said that partly the reason for that was potentially because of the increased heightened tension in the way trans people are being talked about in the media, on social media and by politicians.
How does it make you feel that not so long ago, you know, it's like a fashion, you know, not so long ago, Keir Starmer refused to give his definition of a woman, as you saw. So did Rishi Sunak. They all were then. Penny Mordaunt famously got involved in the row. And then all of a sudden, so they were going, oh, you know, I don't want to offend anyone and all that. So they wouldn't answer the question. Then all of a sudden it became the fashion. They were all going, I can define a woman, you know, and they sort of broke out of this straitjacket they've created for themselves. And suddenly they were queuing up to define women, Keir Starmer included. It's really sort of degrading for someone like you to be the subject of this political football, as I say.
Yeah, I think it is degrading. I think it's a waste of time as well. I think there's so many other things going on in this country, and there are so many other issues that are affecting women, whether they be cis or trans. And I think that's actually what we need to talk about. We need to focus on the issues that are at hand rather than how things are written down in the dictionary.
And do you think the Prime Minister should apologise to Esther Ghey, Brianna Ghey's mother?
I think it would be a nice gesture, but frankly, from my point of view, I don't care. I don't want an apology of the Prime Minister. I don't care. What I want is for the true justice, I think, would be for this Prime Minister to get voted out at the end of this year.
I think there's a high chance of that happening,
well,
actually.
Yeah,
hope that's the case.
We're no fans of Labour, but I think you're right, and frankly, I think the Tories deserve their fate. And just a last point, I keep making this point, I can't remember a lower point in Westminster history than the two main parties squabbling over who the mother of a murdered teenager likes the most. I mean, come on.
It's playground. It's embarrassing. Yeah. And I think, you know, Rishi Sunak, what he said was despicable. Keir Starmer isn't necessarily much better on this topic.
I agree.
And they are using the death of a teenage girl to score football points or score points in this game of football.
Football points is a good way of putting it. It's absolutely disgusting, I think. It's absolutely disgusting. Listen, thanks very much for coming in, Shivani.
Thank you, Shivani.
Really
Great
good.
to see you.